This is William K. Murtaugh, Mert Witness 1, and welcome to the Wednesday Mobile-thon. You know, sometimes I have to wonder just how gullible and stupid people will allow themselves to be. This latest thing by Field McConnell is so ridiculous, it's beyond the pale. And it is synonymous for the name that I have given today's segment, which is From Minnows to Whales. Because this is a fish story that's gone so far beyond the realm that it's kind of hard to wrap yourself around it and comprehend how people would believe such obvious nonsense. But people continue to believe this crap. Now, Field McConnell has once again brought up this conspiracy theory about airplanes. And it's the one thing that had allowed Field McConnell to gather a big audience among the anti-deep staters and Trump supporters and so on and so forth over the years. And if he had kept on this moronic line, he'd probably be getting away with this nonsense without being in jail. But because Field McConnell got tangled up with Timothy Charles Homseth, he finds himself sitting in a county jail awaiting extradition to Florida, which is going to happen, by the way. Now, Mr. McConnell had been going on about this autopilot thing for years. And the story has gotten progressively bigger every time it's told. Started out as a concerned pilot having to do with equipment that had been installed on an aircraft that may or may not have caused problems that might lead to a future 9/11, might explain why an airplane disappeared and another one crashed and so on and so forth. And he kept expanding it until today it is getting beyond a whale of a fish story, and that now he is talking about a possible $1 trillion lawsuit. Now, I don't know what caused him to pull the rabbit out of his hat, other than he seems to like to brag about these multi-million-dollar and trillion-dollar and billion-dollar lawsuits. You know, he's declaring, because he is quote-unquote unlawfully incarcerated, that he is metering his incarceration at millions of dollars per day that both the state of Florida and the state of Wisconsin is going to have to pay for. You know, never mind the fact that no one has ever won such a large amount of money in a situation like this, let alone even filed a lawsuit for this kind of money. And so Mr. McConnell decides, well, if he can brag about his incarceration, he can brag about this $1 trillion lawsuit that's going to be out there for what happened to these airplanes. And the whole thing, of course, is going to fall flat on its face, but the fans of his are going to, quote-unquote, stick to the plan and listen to Mr. McConnell, because Mr. McConnell reads out of the Bible. His format on his half-hour-long monologues, yesterday it was 11 minutes, but normally it's a half hour to 45 minutes, sometimes an hour, where he will talk about something for substance for about 5 or 10 minutes, and he goes into a Bible reading class. And that's precisely what he did today. He talked briefly about his incarceration, and something kind of interesting creeped in about that. And then he went into the biggest portion of the show talking about Bible reading. Now, I only got through about 10 minutes of this before I had to leave. And I'll say one thing about Phil McConnell and other followers of the Bible. If you're going to prophesize and you're going to constantly preach in the Bible, do the world a favor and follow the teachings of the Bible. Now, there's a commandment here that Phil McConnell, Tim Holmseth, and a whole bunch of other people seem to ignore. And that is, thou shalt not lie. Thou shalt not bear false witness. And these people steadfastly refused to follow that commandment. Now, there's more in there as far as the 10 Commandments, which is basically the foundation of the Bible, just like it. People like Pendergrass say there's foundations of the law. The Bible is the Christian logbook. And there is nothing that I can find in the Bible. I don't profess to be an expert, so maybe some of the Bible thumpers out there can answer this for me. What is there in the Bible that says you can lie and bear false witness and violate the 10 Commandments in order to put forth your agenda? I mean, what good is the Bible if people aren't going to follow its teachings? This is a question I have had all my life. Because there are people out there that will beat the Bible out of your head that says, it's God's will, God this, God that, and they completely ignore it because it gets in the way of what they want to do. And this is what Phil McConnell and Tim Holmseth are doing. They are completely ignoring the Bible. Read the damn thing, read the passages, and then look at what Tim Holmseth and Phil McConnell are doing. They are violating the teachings of the Bible. And I don't care what book you read out of. I've had people that are experts on the Bible, namely ministers, and mainly ministers, some priests, but mainly ministers, and they're telling me that, in their words, that Phil McConnell and Tim Holmseth both are bastardizing the Bible, which is a word that I never thought I'd hear associated with Christian teachings, but that's what they say they're doing. They're misinterpreting the Bible, they're not following the Bible's teachings, and so forth. And so that is what Phil McConnell's doing when he's talking about trillion-dollar lawsuits, talking to people that are in various governments, being a personal friend or at least associated with, in some direct fashion, the President of the United States. Because I get back to the same thing I repeat time and time and time again. And that is, if Phil McConnell was that close to the President of the United States, he would not be sitting in a county jail. Period. He would be out doing his radio station thingamajiggy on YouTube out of his house. People can't seem to get this through their thick heads. Instead, they come up with excuses every day as to why Phil McConnell is still in jail. And it has nothing to do with his autopilot theory. There's people out there just like him. This is not a unique theory. Now, I have a technology background that few people know about, and I know all about this controversy with this autopilot situation. And people like Phil McConnell have blown this thing so far out of proportion, it's hard for people to understand what the problem is. And the problem with the aircraft, such as the Supermax, is a software problem, not a hardware problem. And it's not going to do what Phil McConnell says it's going to do. But it's highly technical to argue about, so I'm not going to argue about it. But getting back to this situation with Phil McConnell being in jail. Phil McConnell is in jail for one reason and one reason only. And that is because he made death threats against a woman in Florida. It's as simple as that. That's all you need to know. He made death threats against the mother of 3 children. And he did it several times. It is against the law to make death threats. And when you do it over the internet, it's classified as felony cyberstalking. And it will get Phil McConnell adjudicated guilty, and he will serve some punishment. Whether it be a stern warning and put on probation, or a death sentence, or a combination of both, and possibly a cash fine. So you're going to have all kinds of ramifications come about from what Phil McConnell has done. And it's squarely on the shoulders of Phil McConnell. Now, what I find interesting about the things that Phil McConnell says is that he is going through the very same court that he says is an admiralty court, an illegitimate court, and so on and so forth, to try and get out of jail. He's filing writs of habeas corpus and appeals and all this stuff in the very court system that he lacks faith in. So I'm not comprehending how he thinks he's going to get out of this situation, because if this is an illegitimate court and it doesn't follow the rule of law as these alternative law people think, then he's not going to get out of jail because he's fighting the quote-unquote corrupt system. The corrupt are not going to let him out. If he used that line of thinking, he is going to go to Florida. You know, I get the biggest kick out of reading the comments by the followers of this moron who are just as stupid as he is. Phil McConnell's not getting out of jail. If he did, it'd be the biggest surprise. I'd wind up with a pie in the face, because I am absolutely certain he's not. And so are people that know the law. But if he gets out, it's going to be another Casey Anthony. So, I'm just betting that Phil McConnell is going to be coming to Florida, and that I will be in Fort Lauderdale for the trial. And I will be covering this situation of him being in Florida for the duration of this case, which is going to be a long time. Now, as I said, once the extradition order was handed down, it wasn't going to be a Polaroid moment where that afternoon Phil McConnell was going to be on his way to Florida. It's going to take time. There is no other reason for Phil McConnell being in the Pierce County Jail right now other than they are working on it. Government is notoriously slow in getting things done. Take their time. They make the arrangements that are needed to be arranged. And one of these days, Phil is going to be gone. And you're going to know, because the first day, there is not a courthouse Bible thumping, you will know that Phil McConnell is no longer in Pierce County. Because it's either going to be the same day or the next day that Field McConnell would have been transferred out of prison. Because generally, Field McConnell does his Bible classes before noon Central Time, which is why I miss a lot of these, because he makes the phone call to whoever the sound mixer is, and then the sound mixer uploads it to YouTube. Now, the process for producing a half-hour to 45-minute long video to put up on YouTube takes about an hour. I do it all the time on these daily monologues. You know, and this is after the editing is done. I edit this monologue to some degree. Field, they may put it up what we call raw, is that he just spouts off for a half hour, 45 minutes. They shoot it up there, and it's on the air. So by noon, 1 o'clock Eastern Time, it's on YouTube. And it was on there today, a bit early. 12:40, it hit YouTube. I was able to listen to some of it. So this is how I found out about the Bible thumping and stuff from today's monologue. And of course, in the comments, people are saying, you know, everything about, well, he's going to be out soon, all this. But people over on Facebook and various accounts over there are trying to figure out why the hell Field is not out. And some have said he's already out, which he's not, because if he's out, what is he doing in jail? You know, people don't think. But people are beginning to ask, why is it taking so long to get Field McConnell out of jail? The answer is quite simple. He's not getting out of jail. And the funny thing is, when he goes to Florida, I will be curious to hear what the excuses are for him being in Florida. Somebody is probably working on that right now. Because when he is out of the Pierce County Jail, they're going to have to come up with an answer. Now, for a day or two, they might get away with saying he's free because it's going to be off the system. He will not be on another jail roster until he gets to Fort Lauderdale. It's going to take 1 to 3 days to get him there. The only thing they're going to know is that the jailhouse rants have stopped. That Field McConnell is going to disappear from the inmate roster at Pierce County. And nobody's going to know where he's at because they don't advertise when they transport an inmate to another jurisdiction. They don't give you an itinerary. They don't give you the flight that he's on, any of that. It's all done in secret because they don't want some bunch of vigilante morons trying to break him out of prison, which seems to be the game plan right now. It came out recently when this Stella story came about that there was actually a plan being worked out to stage a prison break, which would be a moronic thing for people to do. People are going to get shot and people are going to go to jail for a very long time. Because it's not a smart thing to do. And Field McConnell is not that important to begin with. He's just some 70-year-old fart that likes to shoot off his big mouth, the same as this 69-year-old fart likes to shoot off his big mouth. And it's not important to put your lives on the line and your freedom on the line for an old fart with a big mouth. But there are probably people stupid enough to do this. We've already had this moronic woman, Trace Remington, do some crazy crap. And it didn't get her anywhere. We got another moron from Minnesota that's barging into Denise McConnell situation and making a complete mess of things. And this has been the story all along. These people that seem to want to help Phil McConnell and Denise McConnell are making things worse. They're guaranteeing, number one, that the house is going to be gone. And number two, Phil McConnell is going to be in jail for a very, very long time. It's a distinct possibility that Phil McConnell might die in jail. He's a year older than me. He's 70 years old. He's facing anywhere from 2 to 10 years in prison. People don't understand how serious of a situation Phil McConnell is in. And this is just on the Florida charges. We haven't even gotten into the federal charges he's facing. We also have not gotten into the charges he's facing in Minnesota or in Wisconsin when Florida's done with him. You know, people have forgotten that Phil McConnell threatened the life of a bank official. That's a death threat. And so he's facing the same situation in Wisconsin he's facing in Florida, except for this time, it's worse. You know, when you're getting into threatening to commit first-degree murder or second-degree murder. There's all kinds of ramifications from that one. And he's done it waving guns into the screen on YouTube, so they've got the video. Now, why they decided to let Florida yank him down there on a lesser charge is rather odd, but I think what they're doing is they're just figured, well, let Florida deal with them, let them spend the money on the prosecution, and that way they'll have a foundation of evidence to use when they nail him for threatening this bank official. Because the last I checked, they have not forgotten that one. It's on the books. The prosecutor will go forward at the appropriate time with that case. So Phil McConnell has that to look at. And then there's this thing with Cynthia Abzug. You know, people have forgotten about that little stunt. But the state of Colorado hasn't. And the FBI hasn't. So not only Phil McConnell, but a bunch of other people have that to look forward to. Because, as I've said in the past, law enforcement works under the radar. They don't brag about this investigation or that investigation. They don't sit there and say, hey, we're investigating this dude. We're going to nail his ass. They do their duty behind closed doors. They work the case. They do the investigating. They do the correlation, the building of the foundations of evidence, the filing of sealed indictments. And then one day, when you least expect it, the man with the badge and the government-issued license tag on his car shows up. And people start to account for their actions. So it's going to happen. It may not happen today, may not happen tomorrow, may not happen next week, may not happen next month, but it's going to happen. And some asses are going to be hitting the floor. So, if you want to sit there and think that, Phil McConnell's this all-important person that's has it on the inside with Donald Trump and the deep state and the high command and all this, live with your delusion. But don't be surprised when all you believers out there start to look like asses when this stuff hits the fan, because it's going to. The real world is going to sink in to a lot of people, and it's going to sink in fast. It's going to be one day you're going to be enjoying yourself, having a vacation, crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, maybe go down to Las Vegas on your little vacation. But the freedom is short-lived. Things are going to start happening. And reality's going to sink in. And there's not going to be any billion-dollar lawsuits, trillion-dollar lawsuits, anything like that. Because to say that you screwed the pooch is an understatement. You really screwed your pooch. And a lot of people have screwed their pooches. Yeah, and it's funny when you stop and think about it that the one thing that is going to bring all of these people down is listening to Timothy Homseth. It's going to bring Timothy Homseth down, and it's going to bring everybody else down. If people had just stayed away from Tim Homseth, if people had ignored Tim Homseth, they'd be doing what they've been doing right now without worries, without investigations, and so on and so forth. But they just, for whatever reason, just had to get Tim Homseth on board. They just had to follow what Tim Homseth was saying. And they followed Tim Homseth to their doom. You know, because the followers of Tim Homseth have yet to comprehend is that Field McConnell is in jail. Field McConnell is sitting in a musty, old prison cell, confined to this little room. Maybe he can talk to the Gideons twice a week or whenever they come in and, you know, read a Bible when he gets one and communicate with his minions out there who have limited access. But Timothy Homseth is sightseeing. Timothy Homseth is going all over the United States, crossing the Golden Gate Bridge, taking selfies in hotel parking lots, on a pullover on a highway on the way to California. Tim Homseth is having the time of his life. He's on this big assignment, talking about conspiracy theories, talking about people interfering with Denise McConnell, talking about Eager Beaver and how he's screwing things up. You know, the Kingston Trio up there in Canada making a mess of things. And the Canadian people that are behind all this are laughing their asses off as how stupid these Americans are. Laughing at the fact that they are able to come up with all this unmitigated garbage, and these stupid Americans are falling for it. That's what's so funny about all this. There's the kingpins behind all this nonsense that's going on with Tim Homseth and his theories and Field McConnell and his theories and being in jail are Canadians. They're not even citizens of the United States. This is a foreign operation. And people don't seem to care. There's no Americans running this thing. It's all foreigners. And the top three that are running this thing are Canadian. Now, there's some Europeans involved to some extent, but the latest information to come out is that no American is in the top tier. It's all Canadians. All these people running around, Field McConnell, Dr. Olson, and so on and so forth, are under the thumb of these three Canadians. And Tim Homseth blew it wide open when he complained about Q not being mentioned. These three want nothing to do with Q. Q is their competition. They understand that Q is nonsense, and it causes damage to any movement, they infiltrate. They want nothing to do with Q. They understand what Q is. They've got their own agenda, and they want to seem more mainstream, which is kind of illogical, than those that are following Q. The people that are following Q is a relatively small number of people. It gets overblown because they have a habit, whoever's behind this Q nonsense, to kind of infiltrate the ultra-right. But absent of that, Q is actually nothing but a fad. It's eventually going to die out. Doesn't matter if Trump wins or loses, if Q is going to fade away. Because it's not self-sustaining. They operate too much in the dark. And all their codes and everything is so far over they have no idea that the people they're working with can't comprehend half of what they're talking about because they've got their puzzles too complicated. They're trying to reach people that don't deal in the kind of algorithms that they're trying to put forth, and people misinterpret it. And that's kind of easy to do because their algorithms don't make any sense. Q is just the biggest and most elaborate hoax that's ever been pulled on the population that I can remember. I mean, people are falling for the dumbest crap when they fall for Q. And I laugh at them for it because it's idiotic. But that's my thought on Q. But the Canadians realize this. They say, geez, we don't want to get involved with this crap. We're going to look more idiotic than we already are. Because the Canadians have tapped in to the American belief, and in some cases Canadian belief, in this deep state crap. I mean, this is not an American phenomenon. I mean, Canada has their own version of the deep state belief. And so does half the planet for that matter. Because that's what's behind the nationalism movement, is everybody believing in this deep state nonsense and the equivalent around the world. And yes, I've allowed politics to creep in because this is one thing I don't believe in, is the deep state, and I think people are taking advantage of it. The Field McConnells and so forth are taking advantage of it because people simply don't take the time to study the facts. If it agrees with their line of thinking, they're going to take it. People on the left are doing the same damn thing. They just mindlessly follow people that espouse what they believe in, and they fall into the same trap. People let other people do their thinking for them, and they get all screwed up. It's like I said, if I had decided a year ago that I wanted to join this circus and be my own Q and all this stuff, I'd probably make a fortune. But it's beyond my nature to get involved in crap like that. So here I am, fighting the tidal wave of nonsense with my quest for the truth. Because in the end, this is not about politics. It's about truth. And about the fact that Tim Holmseth, Field McConnell, the Three Stooges from Canada, and all these other people are lying to you. And they're yanking money out of your wallet in the process, because people send money because they believe in this stuff. Kurt Pendergrass is doing it with his alternative law. And all these other people. But, when they get their backs up against the wall, those at the top turn to the legal system that they don't believe in to get themselves out of their various messes. That's what Sandra, and this is what Dunklin's doing. She's going through the Main Street court to get herself out of this. She went out and hired herself an admiralty lawyer, a bar licensed lawyer. You know, the ones that Kirk Pendergrass and others say are part of the corrupt system. You know, when Sarah Dunklin gets in trouble, when Cynthia Adams gets in trouble, and so on and so forth, they turn to the corrupt legal system to get themselves out of their collective messes. Kind of hypocritical. You know, which is what Bill McConnell's doing. He's being an hypocrite because he's turning around and going to the very same court that he doesn't believe in to get him out of his mess. Doing it the wrong way, but he's trying. You know, filing all these writs and everything improperly to try and get himself out of his little mess. You know, Kirk Pendergrass gets up there and keeps preaching out of the Bible of alternative law and getting everything wrong. And you can't get it through his thick head. You know, and hell, it's right there making things worse. Because they're quoting things that don't exist. That the current legal system in this country is nothing like what they preach. You know, we as a people are falling down the rabbit hole of lunacy with the things that have been going on. And because of this rabbit hole of lunacy, we've allowed ourselves to be enveloped in Q and the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force, the Children's Crusade, and some of this other BS that's out there. And we're just sinking into a quicksand of lies. And I don't know when people are going to start waking up, or if they are going to start waking up. You know, and understand that they're being duped. They're being duped by a bunch of clever puppet masters that are selling them philosophical snake oil. And nothing out there is making any sense. It's all sheer idiocy. It's lunacy. Yeah. As I have said earlier, we have not heard a thing from AdSug, so we don't know how that's going. We're one day closer to when Mrs. Dunklin's going to have to answer the complaint against her and explain to the court her actions when it came to recent events involving AdSug and other people. Because there is a huge pile of evidence in the court right now as to her actions, and it doesn't look good. Because the husband is presenting evidence that this woman was involved in a conspiracy to commit armed kidnapping. So it's going to be interesting to see how that one turns out. Because they've got a sworn affidavit from the woman's teenage, or excuse me, I got the cases backwards. But they've got statements from Cynthia Absug's daughter as to what was happening. So they got a bit of a problem, those on the Dunklin team. And again, there is an investigation by the state of Colorado and possibly the FBI into just what the hell happened. What was this woman doing while she was on the road all this time? And what caused her to be in northwest Montana? So Northwest Liberty News may find himself in the middle of this because he, even though he is a quote-unquote journalist, there is a line to be crossed here. When you're a journalist, you can report on something and do it in a way where you don't turn the people in, but if you actively get involved with aiding and abetting a fugitive from justice, you are in just as much trouble as those that plotted this thing. So there is a remote possibility that Northwest Liberty News may get dragged into this situation, along with whoever that reporter was that he sent down there. Because you just don't go willy-nilly into these cases. You have to make sure that your legal position is quite clear so you don't wind up getting charges yourself. And I've been talking to journalists about this, and they say that Northwest Liberty News might be in trouble themselves if the authorities decided to pursue the matter. I did not give them the complete story. I gave them an outline, but they said based on what they were told and what they understood, because these journalists that I talked to know about the Epsic case, they said the Northwest Liberty News themselves could be in trouble because they crossed the journalistic line when it came to covering the case. So we're going to see how that one goes. I think, though, that the authorities are going to be more interested in Field McConnell, Kirk Pendergrass, Chris Hallett, Dr. Olson, and a few other people when it comes to prosecuting whoever it was that helped Cynthia Absud be on the road. And I think number one on their list is going to be Miss Dunklin, because she is the financial arm behind this, along with whoever this broad is in Virginia. Those two have a hell of a lot to worry about right now. And on another note, I would think that those people in Wisconsin and Minnesota that were planning this little jailbreak might want to keep the number of a good lawyer in their Rolodex, because it is my understanding that one of the reasons that Phil McConnell was put on lockdown was because of this jailbreak plan. That when word got out that people were planning a jailbreak, they put Phil McConnell in lockdown. Yeah, because look at the timeline. Look at when word of this jailbreak plan started to come out. And look at when Phil McConnell was put in lockdown. They kind of mesh. So these really brilliant people decided to advertise on the internet that there might be a jailbreak in the works, may have been responsible for Phil McConnell's phone privileges to be taken away. They shot themselves in the foot. Smooth move, folks. But that's probably what happened. The county jail said, hey, we're reading on the internet these people are going to break this guy out of jail. This guy's talking in codes. He's encouraging it. We got to do something before these people actually go ahead with this plan, because somebody's going to get shot. So fine, we'll take this guy out the air. And so wham, Phil McConnell got his phone taken away, and for a good long time. and he got his phone privileges back, but it's only because the county sheriff knows that he's going to be gone before too long. It's a good indication that they're getting ready to get his ass out of Pierce County. They want to get rid of this guy. They're probably on the phone every day to Florida saying, when the hell are you going to get this guy? He's creating all kinds of problems up here. We want him the hell out of here. So if you want this guy, get up here and get him the hell out of here. Yeah, I can imagine the talk they're having down, between the two agencies. Right now, Broward County's in the middle of a very high-profile trial of the Parkland shooter. And the last thing they want is a bunch of vigilantes running around creating problems at the Broward County Jail. So they're balancing that consideration among everything else they have to consider when they bring Field McConnell to Broward County. They got to shuffle the prison population around, figure out where they're going to put this clown, and protect themselves against any idiotic vigilantes that might show up. And I can guarantee you that Broward County's probably got a list of every sovereign within 100 miles of Fort Lauderdale, Florida. Because they ain't going to take any chances. They got enough problems without Phil McConnell adding to them. So they're letting Phil McConnell stew up in Pierce County, creating headaches for the Pierce County Sheriff while they get their ducks in a row. And then, poof, Phil McConnell's going to be transported to Florida. And Phil McConnell's going to find out just how bad of a situation he is getting himself into. Because the difference between Pierce County and Broward County is night and day. He is going into a seriously bad prison. They've had all kinds of violence happen at that prison. They've had inmates killed in that prison. This guy at prison has a bad reputation. And this is only the booking. This is central receiving. It's the main entry. He hasn't even been transferred to the other prisons in Broward County. They're that much worse. And he's going to be in medium security. And the guys in medium security aren't all that friendly. So he's going to want to get out of that situation in a hurry. Yeah, it's probably going to take him a week to realize he's in some real bad. He's in a really, really, really bad situation. And he just might start singing like a canary. He's going to call the FBI, CIA, or whoever and say, is there something I can do to get the hell out of here? This place is terrible. I said, I'd like to serve my 10 years in Pierce County before I serve it here. I said, is there some place you can send me that's not as bad as this? And the prosecutor said, what do you got to give us? What can you give us to make it worthwhile to cut you some slack, Mr. McConnell? And that's what these other people need to worry about. Phil McConnell's going to find himself in a cesspool, and he's going to want to get out of that cesspool. And so Phil McConnell, after a week, after 10 days, he's going to say, Jesus, said I can't thump my Bible anymore. This place is awful. It smells. People can't shut up. I'm not able to get any sleep. I can't get the phone long enough to do a half-hour, 45-minute monologue. I need to get the hell out of this place. And when he finds that the Kirk Pendergrasses and the lawyer from Northwest United States, the retired judge or whatever the hell she is, and some of these other people, he's going to start going mainstream. He's going to say, okay, I'm going to turn informant. going to become that witness. Now, I'll give you names, addresses, and phone numbers of all the people involved in this little racket. I can give you tips on crimes that will get people locked up for life. And that's when things are going to start happening. Because again, Bill McConnell's 70 years old. Bill McConnell's going to understand that he's not going to be able to see Denise for a very, very, very long time because of the situation he's finding himself in. And he's going to want to get back to his life, and he's going to find that his little game plan ain't working. That President Trump ain't going to call and get him out of the situation. The governor of the state of Florida is not going to do a damn thing. Nobody's going to come to help Phil McConnell. So Phil McConnell's going to have to help himself. And he's going to have to do it by going mainstream. It's going to hit him eventually. And he's going to say, hey, Mr. FBI guy, Mr. U.S. Marshal, I got something for you. Let's make a deal. And he's going to sing like a canary. And when he sings like a canary, the vultures are going to circle the targets. And one by one, these people are going to get in the crosshairs of authorities. And this little game is going to end. And the only ones that may survive this little mess are the Three Stooges, the Canadians running this little enterprise. Because number one, they're in Canada. Their legal system's a little different up there. Rules of extradition, so on and so forth, are different. So they may be able to hold out. But it's the Americans that are going to pay the price. All these U.S. citizens that helped Phil McConnell out in this enterprise and helped out Cynthia Abzug, this woman with the 5 kids, and other people. It's the Americans. They're going to find themselves the target of the buzzards. The targets of the people with the badges, the handcuffs, the government-issued cars. Come knocking on the door. Those are the ones that are going to pay the price for what happened here. And in the middle of all this, the one that caused all these house of cards to come down, the one card at the foundation of this house of cards, is Timothy Charles Homestead. Timmy might or might not pay the price for his part in this little circus. It's hard to say, because Tim Homestead is a minnow. He's just a tiny little fish. He's a little nothing. The worst that'll happen to Tim Homestead is he might get sent back to Minnesota, find himself in jail for 2 years. Maybe, just maybe, with any luck, he'll get hit with a felony, and he may serve another 2 years in jail. So you might see Tim Homestead in jail for 3 or 4 years. But the rest of them, the Dunklins, all these other people that were active in this little enterprise, are going to find themselves in there for a very long time. We're looking at a minimum of 5 years each. A minimum. And they may be in there even longer. 10, 20 years apiece. Because these people are guilty of some serious crimes. We're getting into RICO. And not only jail time, they're going to find their assets seized. Because if you make money off a criminal enterprise, all that money goes away. Anything that you bought with that money goes away. If you bought a car with money that came out of the Pentagon Pedophile Task Force or the Children's Crusade, that gets taken away. You bought a house, homestead laws are exempt when it comes to RICO. They'll take the house. And probably the biggest case in the history of the United States when it came to RICO, right here in Orlando, with the guy that promoted the Backstreet Boys. Wound up losing his house, wound up losing everything. They were selling microphones, all kinds of stuff. I picked up 2 microphones at one of the auctions they had for Madoff. Okay, it's... So all these people out there with the 3 houses and the cars and all kinds of goodies and the condos in Florida, you get yourself in the crosshairs of the federal government, you're going to lose all that stuff. Somebody else will have those 3 houses and a condo. Somebody else will have the antique cars sitting in the big steel barn, and the tractors and the hearse and all that other stuff, and the limousine. That's all going to be property of the United States government before long. All kinds of stuff. There's going to be government auctions all over the United States by the time the dust settles on all this crap. And the 3 Canadians, they'll just wave bye-bye. Say, sorry guys, all we did was provide you with internet space. You abused it. It's not our fault. Have fun. Drop us a postcard if you can find us. Because this is not the first rodeo for these guys. Now, that's one thing people don't realize about what's going on with these people. And the 3 Canadians, they've been down this road before. And they know how to pull the plug and move on. They're not stupid. They just enlist stupid people. And they're keeping an eye on the situation, and they say, well, time to pull the plug, guys. The Americans have screwed up just one time too many. It's time for us to go somewhere else. And that's what's going to happen. It's what always happens in these things. The head of the snake sheds its skin, moves on to the next enterprise. Who knows what these guys have got in mind for the next stunt. But they think ahead. This is like a chess game with these people. They're always 3, 4, 5, 6 moves ahead. They plan ahead. They got an escape plan. It's just like the hacker that has that magnet handy. Have you ever wondered why a guy in an apartment does hacking would have a 1,500-pound magnet? A magnet capable of lifting 1,500 pounds at the ready? Simple. You have an external hard drive without an enclosure attached to your computer. All your hacking utilities, software, and everything's on that hard drive. You hear the FBI, somebody else come banging on the door. You take that 1,500-pound magnet, slap it down on the top of that hard drive. It's just like the old days when you wanted to bulk erase a videotape. Magnets will suck that off a hard drive like a vacuum cleaner. There'll be nothing left. You don't need to go out and get these fancy programs. It's the same with a flash drive. You put a treasure hunt magnet on a flash drive, it's gone. There's no recovery. That's the one thing FBI agents are afraid of when they raid somebody, is that somebody's got one of these big ass magnets just started to plop down on the storage device. Because then they're done. There's all the evidence is gone. It's that simple. And so it's a plan like this that these Canadians have got in place. They've got their magnet standing by for when RCMP closes in. Whatever magnet plan they have. And that's where that term came from, by the way. Criminals always have a magnet plan. They have a way of erasing their tracks, deleting the evidence, making it so they are undetectable. And the magnet plan involves getting rid of their connections, the Americans. The Americans that got sucked up in this enterprise. The Americans that went along with this venture because they believed in what the Canadians told them. They believed in the deep state. They believed in all this crap about CPS and the baby eating and the baby selling and all this other stupid stuff. They found a way to milk money with the help of the Americans. These 3 Canadians, and they will laugh all the way to the bank while the Americans marched like lemmings off to jail. This is William K. Murtaugh, Witness 1.